was ugly as a kid, and as I should be. I was 11. It's not exactly like you can be a hot 11-year-old. It's actually a little concerning how kids are already hitting their glow-up stages by the time they turn 11, 12. You know, the prime ages of entering into the awkward phase. Full of side ponytails, wearing clothes that don't even remotely go together, having makeup be 50 shades too orange. I may look pale as a ghost right now, but when I was in high school as an early teenager, oh my god! Why did I think I was orange? What was that phenomenon? But now they're trading in the side ponies for slicked back buns, mismatched clothing for a Lululemon set, orange drugstore makeup for high-end Sephora makeup. It was quite genuinely bleak the other day, let me tell you. I was looking for a specific pair of juicy tracksuit pants. Tell me why. I'm looking at the size and I'm like, look, I don't know if I'm a small or a medium. I am tall and I've also got some meat on me at the moment, alright? And then there's this little girl who looked to be around like 10 or 11 years old, and she shoved in front of me, mind you. So I'm already like, what the hell? And then she picked up the same pair of juicy tracksuit pants that I was gonna buy, handed them to her dad, and her dad paid for them. Girl, you're 11! I do not know what parent would want their child to be wearing clothing that implies that an 11-year-old has a juicy bum, because absolutely no, you do not. You are 11. But I can't blame the kids, dude. Not only these days are they growing up a lot faster, a lot younger, but the parents, they constantly facilitate this behavior, because we're gonna get into something quite interesting later in the video. But yeah, a lot of the time it is parents, because they are too old at age 10 to play with toys. You heard that right. Can we please go back to telling kids to wait until they're older to have certain things? Thanks. Due to the excessive grip that social media has on our everyday lives, it is, if not, one of the main reasons as to why a considerable portion of Gen Alpha is growing up at a much younger age. As of late, mainstream department stores even are offering clothing options to preteens that resemble a grown adult's closet. Bright colors and modest designs have been replaced with devoid of color garments and crop tops that you'd never imagine a preteen wearing, let alone parent buying. Gen Alpha has it rough, my guy, as it's sort of like TikTok is to these preteens what Total Girl and Teen Vogue was to us at their age. We were flicking through the pages and finding everything that was fashionable and cute in those magazines. And I don't know, because like internet wasn't a really big thing in my household up until I turned like 13, 14. I know, crazy. Even being on something like MySpace, Facebook, Instagram back then was not even as close to bad as what TikTok is today. In terms of Gen Alpha feeling as though they need to live up to the constant changing beauty standards. Speaking as a Gen Z who is 23 years old, I never really felt pressured to act or look like a grown woman up until I turned around 13, 14-ish. Now, I'll be honest, when I was 13, I was getting bullied like you wouldn't imagine at school, okay? And most of it was because I was not developing as the same way as my peers. I was extremely skinny back then, to the point where I constantly heard mosquito bites, the walls are jealous of you, you look like a teenage boy. After constantly hearing that was around the time that I did feel pressure to look and act grown. However, it is so much worse for the preteens and early teenagers of today, as everybody has a phone, everybody is on social media, and if you don't have a phone and you're not on social media, you are a freak. At least that's what kids at school think. Personally, you know what? Kids should not be on social media until a certain age, but we'll get into that. But not to mention the fact that Gen Alpha is also heavily on social media, where the idea of perfection is constantly shoved in front of their faces. These tween girls especially have it hard at the moment because there is no place for them that they feel as though they belong to. It's always cringe or embarrassing for them to be into things for their age range. So they change. And that pressure alone of having to fit into standards their favorite influencers are either setting or following is enough for that said preteen to change. It really does not surprise me that in current day, tween girls are kind of like automatically skipping their awkward phase. Because, I mean, you've got to understand, kids at school are ruthless. They don't care how they make you feel. Remember when that kid got bullied at school for having a Stanley Cup dupe? Now, imagine the entire classroom full of tweens following TikTok trends and are showing up to school every single day looking like they're an influencer, heavily staring at the Gen Alpha kids who will never have to go through the awkward phase of side braids, wearing Aeropostale t-shirts, and getting bullied because they immediately get to go to the glow-up stage. I think there is this big misconception that Gen Alpha aren't being bullied anymore because they're skipping their awkward phases. And instead, they're able to go to school and be themselves, and it's all sunshine and roses, and nobody ever says anything to them. Yeah, a little unrealistic and unreasonable at that, don't you think? It is quite literally so much worse for the tween girls nowadays in school, as boys literally are expecting them to look like Instagram models at the age of 12, 11 in some cases, which deeply disturbs me. That's kind of the whole reason as to why these preteen girls have had their glow up by the age of 12, 13, it seems. It's very bold of people to assume that the kids aren't ugly anymore, therefore bullying doesn't exist.
What is going on with Gen Alpha? Generation Alpha is so hyper aware of what they look like, and it's honestly shocking. They are 10 and 11 years old, and they know how to use makeup, they know how to dress, how to act, and they don't have an awkward phase anymore.
I feel like anybody who was 13, 14 in the 8th grade, specifically in 2015, remembers what it was like when social media started to become more of a prominent thing in our everyday lives. Boys at my school were obsessed with Kylie Jenner and obsessed with making fun of girls who did not look like her. They genuinely thought that it was possible for a 13-year-old girl to be slim, thick. Like, these standards that celebrities set, and look, they are victims of it to some extent, right? That's a whole different thing for another time. But these standards affect so many young girls out there, and it's only getting worse. And for people to, assume that it's not bad for Gen Alpha because they're able to have so much access to, say, Pinterest to gather inspiration for their outfits and makeup and hair and whatnot, I feel like people are not having critical thought about this. And I'm not talking about this TikToker here because they are raising some points. All I'm saying is, could you possibly, even imagine what the Gen Alpha kids are going through today if it was already like that in 2015? And I'm only speaking from my experience. Maybe yours differs. Let me know in the comments. Not to mention the fact that part of the reason these kids are so hyper aware of their appearance as opposed to when we were their age is literally because of social media. Anytime I'm going out at the moment, I am seeing these tween girls in the shortest biker shorts, literally Lululemon head to toe. And they have got all of the fashion down. And then I look at their parent and they look the same. So not only are these Gen Alpha kids having to deal with social media, but their parents are still in that kind of like young hip phase where they too are following the same TikTok trends, because there is no differentiation when it comes to the age range of how young or old you gotta be to wear certain items of clothing, as the items of clothing that are promoted to the adult women are promoted to the young girls too.
Anyone from Gen Z, I'm sure you can relate, you probably had an awkward phase. These children, they don't have that anymore, because they are so hyper aware of what they look like that they know how to present themselves to not be looking awkward, to look trendy and cool and pretty or whatever.
Y'all gotta understand too that these more fashion forward preteens have access to an endless supply of content to compare themselves to. There was literally this goth girl that came up on my For You page the other day, and she was 13, and I thought she was at the very least 23, like around the same age that I was, and I was genuinely shocked because I was about to follow girl and I was like, actually no, you are 13. Holy like, how do y'all be looking like this? And then I remember they have so much access to not only so many products these days that you can use to look like the people that you see on social media, but that is all that they're seeing. Mind you, appearance matters so much at the moment to these kids. They constantly feel like they have to put themselves inside of this aesthetic and that aesthetic, and it's a mess, really. All these preteens see every other day is how to look more trendy, what to buy to be more trendy, how to act so people won't bother you at school, or because maybe you look a little bit quirky.
When I was 10 or 11, I did not care about how I looked whatsoever. It was not even on my radar.
That is probably because we didn't have TikTok or social media be a very present thing in our everyday lives, especially at that age.
And I feel like that's how it should be when you're a child. But these children have access to so much media and so much content consumption that they know, they are hyper aware of it. I saw a video the other day on TikTok of this girl who is no older than 12, and she was showing her workout routine that she does every day to get an hourglass body.
Sad, isn't it? Because this is what that 12-year-old girl's For You page would be full of. That is most likely the content that is constantly being promoted for her to consume. This is how much time these Gen Alpha kids are spending on social media. Of course, they're going to want to emulate that, even if it's, not for them or it's not right either. And look, don't even get me started on the fact that fat phobia is back in full force, because I keep telling y'all, the pendulum has swung. It has swung so far away, and skinny talk is on the rise. And a lot of the tips that they're giving girls to become skinny is toxic. It's ED shit. And nobody wants to admit it because, oh my God, like, you should just lose weight anyways because it's unhealthy for you. Shut up. And let's not forget as well that Gen Z had to suffer through a similar kind of situation. It's just lucky that it didn't hit us as hard as it's hit Gen Alpha. And that's not to say that I'm like, oh my God, thank God it was Gen Alpha and not Gen Z. It's more so to say that, oh my God, they just have it straight up worse these days. And I hate that people constantly downplay it because Gen Alpha, iPad kids, they're stupid and whatnot. Maybe the reason they are that way is because of the stupid ass elders around them who are bringing these kids up. Because I'm sorry, I refuse to blame a child for their behavior. I hate the fact that so much of the blame gets laid onto Gen Alpha when it was previous generations to before them who created this issue to begin with. Social media only pretty much rewards attractive people in the algorithm. That is all you'll see, right? What kind of people are the tweens always watching? Oh, that's right, attractive people. And you know what they're gonna try and do? They're gonna try and want to be like them. It is only natural for a kid to want to be and look like somebody who seems to have it all going well for them. That influencer that they love has long, beautiful hair, perfect skin, ultra skinny, very, very pretty, does excessive hauls, uses all the high-end skincare and makeup. And yet we're sat here confused as to why Gen Alpha are the way that they are at the moment. Those are quite literally their influences. The beauty standards set in place, mind you, were here before Gen Alpha were even born. So let's not act like they're at fault here when their reality is leagues different to what previous generations had to experience before them. And again, that's not me taking away from any hardships of previous generations. I think every generation has kind of had their own collective hardship of things that came before them, and they're having to deal with the repercussions of that. It's just so sad that they barely get any support.
Can we talk about Generation Alpha for a sec? I saw a video on here talking about how 10-year-olds were taking over Sephora, and I totally agree. And I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like Generation Alpha skipped their awkward phase and grew up way too fast. Like, what happened to watching Disney Channel and doing Rainbow Loom and making duct tape wallets?
It's most likely because that was what was popular for us at that time. But kid things aren't necessarily marketed towards the kids anymore. I mean, do I need to say anything else? What was quote unquote cool to be into for Gen Z is not cool for Gen Alpha. As again, their reality is completely different for them than what it was for us. They are bullied if they dare find a cringe meme funny. Or, I don't know, maybe want to wear galaxy leggings in the big year of 2025. Or something that I see way too often is the fact that a preteen should have a more advanced music taste than Sabrina Carpenter or Taylor Swift, and therefore they're cringe. It is actually hell for Gen Alpha, bro. I feel so bad for them.
When I was their age, I was asking for craft supplies for Christmas, and they're all getting Drunk Elephant and Rare Beauty. It's just whoa, slow down, enjoy being a kid. I don't know, Gen Alpha scares me a little bit.
You know what I'll say? Gen Alpha do not scare me in the slightest. They're parents do though. Parents kind of forced me to grow up faster. When I hit 10, my parents told me I was too old for games and toys and stuff. I don't know if that's normal age or not. Sweetheart, that is not the normal age to stop liking that stuff. I really want to kill this idea that you need to fall out of love with playing with toys or playing video games just because you're above a certain age. This kid was 10 and they were told to stop playing with toys and video games. And then the internet will be like, oh my God, why is this kid into makeup and skincare and literal booty shorts? It's probably because their parents are stupid idiots who want their kid to be exactly like them as soon as possible. The mini-me's, the little twins. I see it all the time on social media and it makes me gag. It makes me sick. Gag in a bad way. I am not gagged. Do not get that twisted. I still play video games. I still go to claw machines and win plushies because I still like plushies. I also like collecting Fortnite figurines. That's probably something you did not know about me, but now you know. But we're gonna blame them for growing up too fast when their parents don't have a brain cell. There was also this trend on TikTok showing your 12-year-old sibling now to when you were 12, and it further even proves my point that these kids are only emulating what they are seeing on TikTok. Let me tell you, this TikToker's sister looks like every other girl that I see on the For You page, and that is not a dig. Rather, you know what's popular, you know what's trending, the clean girl aesthetic, the slicked back buns, the little arm bags, the excessive makeup that I saw on this 12-year-old's table. I didn't even have a smidgen of that when I was that age. I only ever had that little Revlon, it's like a smoky eyeshadow mini palette, and then I had the most orange DB foundation. Okay, DB, yeah, that one. And blue eyeliner. It was tragic, my love. Whereas what was interesting to see is that this TikToker at age 12 looks like they were plucked from the Disney Channel. Deadass. It is sad that social media has ruined childhoods, but let's not forget about the parents' duty here either. They could very well not buy into any of those products. They just cannot handle dealing out no's. These parents choose to support this kind of lifestyle for their preteens boys because they're too old for toys and video games anyways. Yeah, no, hop in the bin, mate. I was allowed to experiment with makeup when I was 12, but I was never allowed to wear it outside of the house when I was 12. I don't even come from a religious or conservative background. It just, I don't know, different time, I guess, back then. And my parents just weren't really cool with me wearing makeup outside of the house when I was 12. I mean, I don't know, I feel like that's quite normal. So with all of that being said, everybody, do you happen to have a Gen Alpha in your life, whether it be a little cousin, maybe you have a sister, niece? Do you know if their parents have told them if they're too old to like certain things? Therefore, it's not only just the social media pressure aspect to it and the fact that they're getting bullied at school for, you know, being cringe or whatnot, but then that extra pressure if their parents being like, actually, like, grow the up, you 10-year-old idiot. You should be at least 25 by now, my little 10-year-old. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments or email me at dramakweensubmissions@gmail.com. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming to Yappersville today. I appreciate your time so much because time is so important and we don't have enough of it here. So for you to spend it here with me every other day, fucking thank you, man. Take care of yourselves and most of all, love your fucking selves.